In this video, I'm going to sand and spray all of the doors. And this is the part I wasn't looking forward to. I'm going to use an orbital sander with 120 grit sandpaper. I've already removed all the hinges and the little rubber bumpers. I'm going to sand all the doors, fronts, sides, all the edges, then stack them and get them ready for staining. I'll do the back of the door first and finish up on the face. This is a very long process, and the light at the end of the tunnel is very small. These doors and cabinets came somewhat sanded, but they're just rough sanded, so I need to do a finish sanding. All the edges are very sharp. I don't want to route them, so I'm just going to knock them down with the orbital sander. Now I can do this with the sander because maple is very hard. If I was to do this with a wood like pine, I wouldn't be able to use the orbital sander to sand them down. Because the orbital sander can't get into the corners, I use a 120 sanding sponge to sand inside the corners. Now I need to knock down the edges toward the inside of the panel. For this, I'm going to use a piece of 120 grit sandpaper. Here I want to be careful not to hit the panel in the center. Especially on the side where it's going across the grain, I don't want to leave any marks on the center panel. These areas definitely have to be knocked down because they're very sharp. Now I'll flip the door over and do the process all over again. Now I only have 31 more doors to go. This is only part of the stack. The rest of them are sitting on the table inside the house. I think you get the idea. We'll move on. I don't have a lot of room in my garage to do them all at one time, so I'm going to have to do these in batches. Before I stain them, I'll blow all the dust off of them. Now I can start staining. Make sure you wear some kind of rubber gloves. This is going to be very messy and it'll be hard to clean your hands afterwards. And to be honest, I don't think you want to absorb all those chemicals. In case you didn't see the video where I stained the cabinets, I'm using Varathane gel stain. And the color is called Weathered Gray. Just like the sanding, I'm going to start on the back with the staining. Before I start wiping any of it down, I'm going to stain the whole back of the door. On the edges where the panel meets the stile and rail, I'm going to push the brush in between that area, underneath the slot where the panel fits into. I want to make sure there's stain there, just in case the panel ever shrinks, you won't see a white line. Make sure you have plenty of rags because you're going to go through a lot of them. As I'm wiping the stain, I want to make sure I'm using even pressure. I don't want to wipe off too much of the stain. I want to keep some of the gray color. If you press too hard, the stain will get lighter. The center panel is going to take stain differently than the stiles and rails. That's because the center panel is a veneer and the stiles and rails are solid wood. So I'll be using different pressures for them to get the color close to the same. Also on these cabinets, the center panel, one side has a plywood veneer, which I'm not sure what kind of wood it is, and the other side, the face side, is maple. If you keep watching, you'll see the difference from the front and the back. The back panel is also a lot more porous, so it's holding on to a lot more stain. Before I do the face of the door, I'll do all the edges. I'll wipe down the edges when I wipe down the face of the door. I'm doing everything just like the back of the door. Again, I want to make sure I get it in between the panel and the stile and rail, so if the panel ever shrinks, there's not a white line. It takes a little longer to wipe the gel stain down because it's so thick. It just seems to hold the color better. I think if I did this with regular stain, I'd have to do 2 or 3 coats to achieve this color. Now here I rubbed a little bit too much on the edges, so I'm going to put a little bit back on and let it sit for a second and then re-wipe. Now I'll wipe the sides. Then I'll double check the back, wipe the edges, and make sure there are no smears on the back. That's one door. Now I'll set this one on the side and keep moving on. You can see here how I'm getting up underneath the center panel and the stile. You also have to be careful because you don't want big globs of stain under the rail. I didn't stain all the doors. I put them back in the house. I only stained as many as I could spread out to spray. I also let the stain dry for a couple of hours. Now I'll mix up a little lacquer. Just like the cabinets, I'm going to use a 1:1 ratio. Knowing that I'm going to be spraying just about every day till the job's done, I leave the nozzle soaking in lacquer thinner. Now I'll flush the gun out with lacquer thinner just to make sure it's clean. I'll fill up the gun and I'm ready for spraying. I'm going to spray the backs of the doors first, and when they dry I'll flip them over and spray the fronts. The doors will be the easiest to spray because they're laying flat and you won't have to worry about any runs. You can see here it's already starting to flash over. It's a little cooler out today, so it's going to take a little bit longer to dry. It's been about 45 minutes and I'm ready to flip them over. Now, just to make sure they don't stick to the table, I'm going to use 1/4 nuts to keep them off the table. That's why I always do the backs first, because if they're going to stick, the back is really not going to show anything because the cabinet doors are closed all the time. Now I'll brush them off real quick and start the whole process over again. It's been about 45 minutes and I'm ready to flip them over and start sanding. Now I'll do the same thing as I did with the cabinets. I'll use a 220 grit sanding sponge and lightly sand down the doors. On the edges I have to be very careful so I don't sand down too far and hit bare wood. And I'll do this to all the sides of the doors, to all the doors I have sprayed. I believe I have 9 doors sprayed here. It took me about 45 minutes to sand all 9. Now I'll brush them down, blow them off, and start the finish process. And just like the first coat, the last coat I will start with the backs. After they're dry, I'll flip them over and do the final coat on the face. It's a lot warmer now, and I'm not worried about the doors sticking to the table, so I won't have to use spacers to keep them off the table. I don't know if you can see it from this video, but I'm really happy with the finish. It came out really smooth with no pits or no dust in it. Now I'll reinstall the hinges and put them on the cabinets. I don't want them to lay around too long, so as soon as I get them finished and put the hinges on, I'm going to install them back on the cabinets. Here I'm reinstalling this batch of doors. Once I'm done installing, I'll start the whole process all over again on another batch of doors. On the next video, I'll show you what I had to go through to get the drawers done. Until next time, thanks for watching.